I didn't expect my own parents to skip my daughter's birthday. They texted me the night before with a simple, "We're not coming, money's tight." I told them it was fine. I didn't argue, I didn't push. I just made sure my little girl still had a good day. But 1 week later, everything changed. Christmas morning, I opened my phone and saw my parents' post. Bright balloons, stacks of wrapped gifts, a huge family dinner, smiling photos with my sister's kids. The exact celebration they said they couldn't afford for my daughter. My little girl peeked at my screen and whispered, "They forgot me again, didn't they?" That was the moment something in me went cold. I didn't shout, I didn't text them. I made one quiet decision, and by 9 a.m. the very next day, my dad was banging on my door, furious, demanding answers. He had no idea I was finally done being the family doormat, and he had no idea what I'd already set in motion. I remember standing in my kitchen that morning, blowing up the last balloon for my daughter's birthday. Nothing fancy. Just the two of us, a homemade cake cooling on the counter, and a few streamers she had picked out at the dollar store. She was turning 6. At that age, every birthday still feels like magic. My phone buzzed on the counter. I wiped frosting off my hands and picked it up, expecting a simple "on our way" from my parents. They promised they'd come. My daughter had been talking about it all week, rehearsing how she would run to the door when they arrived. Instead, the message was 3 words. "We're skipping today." No apology, no explanation. Just skipping their granddaughter's birthday like it was a meeting they didn't feel like attending. A second message came 5 seconds later. "Money's tight." My chest went cold, not angry, not upset, just tired. Tired in a way that sits deep inside your bones, because this wasn't new, this wasn't the first time, or even the 5th. This was a pattern dressed as bad luck. I read the text again. Money's tight. Meanwhile, I'd watched them take weekend trips, go out to dinners, buy gifts for my sister's kids like they were royalty. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I turned to look at my little girl, sitting at the table, legs swinging, drawing crooked hearts on a birthday card she made for herself. "Is Grandma coming?" she asked without looking up. I didn't trust my voice, so I just gave the smallest smile I could manage. She didn't push, she never does, and that's the worst part. We cut the cake anyway. She laughed, she made a wish, and when she blew out the candles, I hoped she wished for something cruel, something honest, something like, "Please let them see what they're doing." But she just looked at me with frosting on her chin and said, "It's okay, maybe next time." That night, I checked Facebook out of habit. And that's when I saw it. A huge Christmas setup, gifts stacked like mountains, balloons, sparkly lights, a feast big enough for 10 families. A photo of my parents and my sister smiling ear to ear. The caption read, "Making memories with the people who matter most." It had been posted the same day they claimed money was tight. My thumb hovered over the screen as everything inside me shifted. Not anger, not jealousy, something sharper, something colder. A line had finally snapped. And that was the moment I decided they would never forget my daughter again. Not after what I was about to do. I didn't comment on the post. I didn't text anyone. I just sat there with the phone in my hand, feeling this strange, steady calm settle over me. The kind that comes right before a storm, not loud, but absolute. My daughter wandered into the living room, dragging her new doll by the arm. She climbed onto the couch and tucked herself under my arm like she always does. I tilted the screen away so she wouldn't see it, but she caught a glimpse anyway. "Is that Grandma?" she asked softly. I hesitated. 1 second. Too long. She already knew. Her eyes dropped to her lap, fingers picking at the doll's hair. She didn't cry. She never cries about them. That's how deep the hurt has been carved, silent, old, familiar. Then, barely above a whisper, she said, "They forgot me again, didn't they?" That one sentence cracked something open inside me so hard I had to swallow twice just to keep breathing. I brushed her hair back and kissed the top of her head. They won't forget you anymore, I said. My voice didn't even sound like mine. It was too calm, too certain. After she fell asleep, I sat in the dark living room replaying every moment of the last 6 years. Every time they bailed, every excuse, every holiday where she waited by the window because they said they were almost here. I remembered all the times I defended them. They're busy, they're tired, they didn't mean it. Excuses that felt like chewing glass now. And then I thought about my sister's kids, how my parents posted them like trophies, how they showed up for every school play, every soccer game, every lost tooth. But my daughter, she was an afterthought, a footnote, a kid they only remembered when it was convenient. I got up, walked to the hallway mirror and stared at myself. I looked exhausted, not physically, emotionally, like someone who had been holding the family together with both hands while those same hands kept getting slapped away. And that's when the thought landed. Simple, clean, sharp. Why am I still letting them do this to us? I looked at the clock. It was 11:23 p.m. By midnight, I had made my decision. By 2 hours a.m., I had everything I needed. By sunrise, I was rehearsing what I'd say if they called, but they didn't call. Not until the next morning when they discovered what I had done. And by 9 a.m., my dad was pounding on my door like he had the right to demand anything from me ever again. Little did he know, I wasn't the same daughter he used to push around, not anymore. When I woke up the next morning, the house was silent, except for the soft hum of the heater and my daughter snoring lightly in her room. But my mind was already running. I didn't second-guess anything. I didn't overthink. I didn't give myself space to soften. I started packing. Not our clothes, not our belongings, not anything physical. I packed the truth. The truth my parents had been burying under fake excuses, fake affection, fake family photos, fake loyalty. The truth that I had been too tired or too scared to look directly at. I sat on the floor with my laptop and opened a blank document. My fingers hovered over the keys before they finally started typing, almost on their own. I wrote about the birthdays they skipped. I wrote about the Christmas mornings they ignored, the school plays they forgot, the nights my daughter waited by the window for grandparents who never came. And, most importantly, I wrote about how it all changed the moment my sister had kids. How suddenly they found time, money, energy, and endless love. I didn't exaggerate anything. I didn't attack. I didn't insult. I just told the truth exactly as it happened. When I finished, I read it back and felt something in my chest unclench for the first time in years. My next move was simple. I uploaded everything, photos, dates, screenshots, the timeline, the facts, to a private folder labeled For My Daughter. Not to expose them publicly, not yet. Just to finally document the reality instead of pretending it didn't exist. Then I updated my settings on every platform. I muted my parents. I restricted my sister. I silenced the entire side of the family that only remembered me when they needed babysitting or a favor. No drama, no announcement, just silence. At 7:40 a.m., I posted a simple message to my private friend circle. My parents won't be seeing me or my daughter for a while. Please respect that. Nothing more. No explanation. No receipts. The people who knew me didn't need one. By 8:15 a.m., someone had screenshotted it and sent it to my sister. By 8:27 a.m., my mother texted me with a single passive-aggressive line. "Is there something you want to talk about?" I didn't respond. I wasn't playing that game anymore. At 8:52 a.m., my father called 3 times. I let it ring. Every call felt like peeling off another layer of guilt they had wrapped around me over the years. Then at 9 a.m. sharp, the pounding started. Fist against wood, hard, loud, entitled. My dad's voice boomed through the door like he owned the house, like he owned me. "Open this door right now!" My daughter froze in the hallway, clutching her stuffed animal. I gently placed a hand on her shoulder, leaned down and whispered, "It's okay. He can't hurt us anymore." And for the first time in my life, I believed it. I stood behind the door, listening to the pounding echo through the hallway. My heart was steady, no panic, no fear. Just a strange clarity, like the kind you get right before stepping onto solid ground after years of sinking sand. My dad's voice kept rising. "Don't play games with me. I saw what you posted. Open this door." I glanced at the curtains. A car was parked crooked in my driveway. He must have driven here the second he woke up and saw the messages spreading through the family group chat. The same chat I had been quietly removed from while nobody noticed. My daughter tugged my sleeve. "Mommy, did we do something bad?" That question hit harder than the banging. I knelt down and cupped her face with both hands. "No, baby, we didn't do anything wrong. We're just not letting people hurt us anymore." She nodded slowly, trusting me in a way I wish someone had taught me to trust my own mother. Another set of knocks followed, this time faster, messier, more desperate. He wasn't angry, not really. He was panicking. And that told me everything. He wasn't here to apologize. He was here because he'd lost control. Inside the house, the quiet felt heavier than the noise outside. I could hear my own breath, measured and steady, contrasting sharply with the chaos on the other side of the door. I walked into the living room and picked up my phone again. More missed calls, more texts, a wall of messages from numbers I hadn't saved. My sister, "Call Dad now." My mother, "Stop causing drama, this is embarrassing." That one made me laugh. Embarrassing. They hadn't even scratched the surface of embarrassment yet. I glanced at the clock on the stove, 9:07 a.m. Then my phone buzzed again with a new notification. Dad posted in the family group. I opened it. There it was, a long rambling message about misunderstandings and someone hacking my daughter's account, and family shouldn't air private issues. No accountability, no honesty, just damage control. And right below it, a cousin replied, "But her story sounds exactly like things we've seen before." Then another person chimed in, and another, comments piling up. People I barely talked to were suddenly confessing they'd noticed the favoritism for years. My father's attempt to control the narrative was collapsing in real time. The knocking stopped, there was a long pause, then a quieter, almost pleading voice. "Can we just talk?" I walked toward the door but didn't open it. Not because I was scared, but because he had spent years teaching me that opening the door first was always a mistake. "Talking," I said through the wood, "is what we should have done a long time ago." Silence. The kind that tells you someone finally realized they aren't in charge anymore. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't explain myself like a child defending stolen candy. Instead, I said the one sentence that changed everything. "Whatever you think is happening, it's already too late to stop." I heard him inhale sharply, like the air had been punched out of him. Because for the first time in his life, he had no idea what I meant. And that terrified him. My dad stood on the porch, silent now. No more yelling, no more threats, just waiting. And that told me he finally understood something he'd never faced before in his life. I wasn't under his control anymore. I didn't open the door, not yet. Instead, I walked back into the living room, sat on the couch, and let him stand out there with his thoughts. My daughter sat beside me, hugging her stuffed animal, watching me with wide, steady eyes. "Are we in trouble?" she asked again, softer this time. I shook my head. "No, honey, someone else is." As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. But this time, it wasn't a family member. It was a text from a childhood neighbor, someone who had watched my family from the outside for years. "I saw what you posted. You don't deserve this. And for what it's worth, you're right." Another message came in from my aunt on my dad's side. "He's been lying for years." I'm glad someone finally said something. Then another, and another. People who had never spoken up before were suddenly stepping into the light, confirming the things I'd lived through quietly. Outside, my dad knocked again, this time softer. Can you at least let me explain? His voice cracked on the last word. I didn't move toward the door. I just called back, calm and steady. Explain what? That you forgot your granddaughter again? Or that you lied about money while throwing a party for kids who already have everything? Silence. A long one. My daughter climbed onto my lap and rested her head against my shoulder. It hit me then. She wasn't scared anymore. She wasn't hiding. She was watching me stand up for her. And maybe for the first time, she believed things might change. I gently stroked her hair and kept my voice firm. Go sit on the couch, sweetheart. Mommy needs to say something. She nodded and slid off my lap, curling up with her blanket. I stood and walked toward the door, not to open it, but to make sure he heard every word clearly. You sent me a text instead of showing up for her birthday, I said. You said money was tight, but you had a full Christmas party with gifts and balloons for my sister's kids. You didn't skip because of money. You skipped because you didn't think she mattered. I let that sit. My dad shifted on the porch. I could sense the shame under his stubbornness, like he was fighting the urge to defend himself, even though he knew it wouldn't work anymore. You don't understand, he started. No, I cut in. You don't. You don't understand what it feels like to watch your child realize she's not worth the drive across town. You don't understand what it feels like to see her look at your pictures and wonder why she isn't in any of them. The porch went quiet again. Inside, my daughter peeked over the couch cushion, listening. And here's the thing, Dad, I said, my voice colder now. I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing this because she deserves a childhood that doesn't revolve around waiting for people who choose her last every time. He finally spoke, voice small. Can I see her? The old me would have caved, would have opened the door, would have forced my daughter to smile and pretend everything was normal. But not today, not after everything she'd been through. No, I said quietly, not until we fix this, not until she stops flinching when someone knocks on the door, not until you learn to show up without excuses. My dad exhaled slowly. Defeated. He wasn't used to hearing the word no from me, and certainly not like this. Then, what happens now? He asked. I didn't answer, because he wasn't the one who decided that anymore. I was. And what happened next was already in motion, way beyond anything he was prepared for. He stayed on the porch for a long time after that, longer than I expected, long enough for the morning sun to stretch across the pavement and for neighbors to start peeking through curtains, pretending not to look. For years, he believed a raised voice and a heavy knock could fix anything. Now he stood there quiet, because he finally understood that nothing he used to do worked on me anymore. Inside the house, I sat on the arm of the couch, one eye on my daughter, the other on the shadow under the door where his feet were still planted. My phone buzzed again, another message from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. We always noticed how differently they treated you. I'm glad you finally said something. Then another. Your sister always got everything. It wasn't fair. Then a longer one from an aunt who lived out of state. I tried telling your dad he was pushing you away. He wouldn't listen. Stay strong. I read each message slowly, letting them settle into all the places that had hurt for years. It was strange. All this time, I thought no one saw anything. Turns out everyone saw it. They just thought I already knew. Around 9:25 a.m., my dad shifted again. I heard the scrape of shoes on concrete, the soft thud of his fist against the door, nothing loud, just a tap. Can we fix this? He asked. 3 words he had never said to me in my entire life. I didn't answer right away. Part of me was tempted. Part of me felt that familiar tug. The one that says, just give in, make it easy, pretend nothing happened. But then I looked at my daughter. She was sitting cross-legged on the couch, holding her stuffed animal, listening to every word. And in that moment, everything inside me clicked into place. I walked to the door again, but I still didn't open it. Dad, I said, I need you to understand something before anything changes. He waited. You and Mum chose where you stood in this family. You chose who mattered. You chose who got your time, your love, your attention. I'm not punishing you. I'm just finally choosing myself and choosing her. My daughter's head snapped up a little when I said that, as if she'd never heard anyone say she was chosen before. You made your choices, I continued, and now you're facing the part you never thought would happen, the consequences. He let out a breath that sounded like defeat. I could picture him rubbing his forehead the way he did when things didn't go his way. But this time, it wasn't about a bill or a broken appliance. It was about me. It was about a daughter who finally stopped shrinking. His voice came back softer than I'd ever heard it. So what do you want from us? I didn't even have to think. Consistency, I said. Effort, respect, and honesty. Not just when it's convenient, not just for show, and not only for my sister's kids. He didn't say anything. Maybe he couldn't. And until that happens, I added, you don't get access to her. She doesn't deserve to be an option in someone else's life. There was a long silence. Then the quiet scrape of footsteps stepping away from the door. For a second I thought he'd given up, that he'd walk back to his car and call my mother, rant about me, tell the whole family I was overreacting. But he didn't leave. Instead, he sat down on the porch step, not yelling, not demanding, just sitting there, waiting. It was strange to see the man who always moved with certainty suddenly look lost. Inside, my daughter rested her head on the couch arm and asked, "Is Grandpa mad?" "No," I said softly, "he's learning." And the truth is, so was I. Because what I didn't realize yet was that this wasn't just the end of their behavior. It was the beginning of what I was about to do next. And trust me, they weren't ready for it. My dad sat on that porch step for nearly an hour. Not knocking, not yelling, just thinking. It was the first time in my life I'd ever seen him pause long enough to feel the weight of his own actions. Eventually, he stood up. I heard his footsteps approach the door one last time, gentle this time, almost hesitant. "We'll try," he said through the wood. Not a promise, not a performance, just a quiet sentence from a man who had finally run out of excuses. And maybe that was enough, for now. I didn't open the door, I didn't need to. Some things heal slowly, and I wasn't going to throw my daughter into a situation just because he suddenly realized what he'd lost. If he wanted a relationship, he'd have to earn it. Day by day, action by action. He walked back to his car and drove off in silence. Inside the house, the air felt lighter, not because the problem was solved, but because the cycle had finally been broken. My daughter crawled into my lap and whispered, "Mum, are things better now?" I kissed her forehead. "They're starting to be." Later that afternoon, I opened my laptop again, not to write about the past, but to write new boundaries, clear ones, firm ones, ones that protected her childhood and my peace. I sent one single message to my parents. We are open to rebuilding, but it will be slow and on new terms. No more missed birthdays, no more excuses, no more favoritism. If you want to be in her life, show up, consistently. They read it immediately, and for once, they didn't argue. Because they finally understood what I had known since that first empty birthday chair. The moment a parent stops choosing you, you have every right to choose your own peace. And this time, I chose us. Our home felt different that night, quieter, warmer, happier. Not because the family was fixed, but because we weren't waiting for them anymore. We moved forward, just me and my little girl, finally building a life that didn't depend on people who treated us like an afterthought. And honestly, that was the best ending we could have asked for. What would you have done if you were in my place? Would you have opened the door? Would you have forgiven them right away, or made them work for it? And most importantly, do you think families like this truly change? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more real, emotional revenge stories just like this one, go ahead and hit subscribe before you go. There's a lot more coming.